Hello again in this third part of the tutorial. After the second part, we ended up with a pile of delicious 3D chocolates. Now in this part, we're going to be adding a material to make them look like chocolate, add some lighting, and go for the final rendering. So let's get to it. So in this part, we are going to add a chocolate material to these chocolates, and we're going to position the camera and add lighting to make the final render of our scene. There are two things that we need to start with. First, we need to make sure that we are working with cycles. We are going to render this with the cycles render engine. All right, so let's go here and select cycles render if you don't have it already. And after this, there is one thing I want to say, and is that I always use the Node Wrangler add-on. So if you don't have it enabled, just go to the user preferences, and under the user preferences, go to the add-ons tab and search for Node Wrangler. Okay, and just click on this little button here to enable it. Node Wrangler will give us in the node editor some specific options that I like a lot, right? And I use it, and so I just wanted to know before we go deeper into the nodes, which we are going to do now. So I will select just one of these hearts. In fact, I think I will just position the camera already in the right place, and then we will start working on the material. Okay, so let's find a heart that can work well for positioning our camera. And the first thing I want to do is to select one of these chocolates and press dot on the numpad, or go here to view and view selected, and this will just pop the camera into the selection. So this will help us now navigate a lot faster around here. And let's just look around and see if we can find some interesting scene. Okay, this one here might work, and we just might select this heart and just rotate it a little so it's facing more towards the camera. So let's press R and now press X twice so we can rotate on the local axis and do something like this. Now, of course, it is just intersecting with that other heart, so just bring it like this and maybe move it up a little. It may be intersecting with this other one here in the back, but it's not visible anymore, so I don't really care. And so with this setup, which I like, I will just add a camera. So we have a camera in the scene, and if you remember in the first part of this tutorial, we had set it on the 5th layer. So just shift click this 5th layer, and now the camera is visible and selectable, right? We don't need it to be visible to just position it in this place, but we will need to select it later. So I will just enable it again. So just for putting the camera into this point of view, what we need to do is to press Ctrl-Alt-0, or you can access the same option from here. Let's say Align View, and it should be one of these, Align Active Camera to View. And the camera will snap into that same position. Okay, we can move it a little if we need to. Okay, we can select it just by right-clicking on this border. And now we can press G, C to move it like this, or X twice to rotate it on the local axis. And as you can see, we can just move it around. Good. Now this heart here, I don't really like it, just facing us backwards. So I'm going to press R and maybe Y twice. Okay, so we can just rotate it like this, and this looks much better for me. Something like that. Okay, again, it might be intersecting some of the hearts in the back, but I don't really care. As long as it looks good from the camera point of view, it's okay for me. All right, if we wanted to do an animation, we may have to just keep that in mind, but as we are going to do only a still frame, this is okay. All right, so now I will select this heart here, and I will isolate it. And for isolating it, I need to press slash on the numpad, or just go to view and select here to switch between the global and the local view. So that will just isolate this only one heart. so we can just play with it. However, I also want to be able to set up the light. So I will select this light. Sorry, that's the camera. Let me just find where the light is. I will just click here. The light is here between the hearts. So let's just bring it up. And shift click the first layer again. C to jump out of the wireframe mode. And so I'm going to select the light. Press 0 in the numpad to jump to the camera view. And shift right click the heart. And now I press slash on the numpad to jump into local view. So now I only have this heart and this light. So I will be able to work very easily on the shader for this one object, and then I'm going to copy it for the other object. Okay, so I'm going to just place the cursor right here in this corner and slide it to the right to divide the interface in two segments. And now I will just press T on both of them to hide the tools panel. And here I'm going to jump to the node editor, which is where I will build the materials for this object. Now, before I continue, I'm going to make sure, go here to the render tab, and under this render panel, I will switch to GPU compute. All right, this depends if you have CPU or GPU in your computer. If you have a GPU, if you want to enable it, you want to go to user preferences, go to system, and enable CUDA here. All right, and select your graphics card from the list. All right, if you don't do that, the GPU won't be available from here. Just keep that in mind. So jump to GPU, so the render is faster, and switch to a render view. Okay, this is good. I'm going to select the lamp, and I need something a little brighter to light this up so I can see exactly how the material works. So let's just click on this lamp. All right, lamp edit tools, and I'm going to make it a sun light. Good. I'm going to enable use nodes. So here I can control the strength. 1 will be okay for now. And now I can rotate the light, press R and just rotate it. And you can see how it affects our heart. Now, for testing purposes, this will be okay. Then for the final scene, I will just set up the lighting separately. But for now, for testing the chocolate material, this will be enough. All right, I'm going to also go here to the render tab, and under sampling, I'm going to add 100 here. All right, so we have a little more samples. So the render here is cleaner. We don't have that many noise. All right, next thing I need to do is to add a material. So when I have an object selected, I just pressing right click on top of this heart. I can just go here and add a new material, or alternatively, you can go here to the materials tab and add a new one. This will be called chocolate. All right. And so we could go ahead and do something very quick, but I will take it a little farther. Okay, let me just explain. I can just go here to shader and add a glossy shader because I want the chocolate to be a little shinier. Okay, so the diffuse will add the color, the base color, and the glossy will add some little reflections. Okay, so if you can see now, this would be the glossy. And I'm doing this, right, connecting one shader to the output just by holding Control, Shift, and left mouse button. All right. This is one of the options that are enabled with the Node Wrangler add-on. All right, so just keep that in mind. Okay, so here what I need to do is to add this. Okay, you can see how I can just change the roughness. Okay, and this is some nice reflections and stuff, but of course this looks like something like metal. For this one, I want the base to be brownish, like chocolate. Now, to be really accurate, I would need to search for photos or something and use them as references, so I get the colors right and the reflections exactly right, and I will leave that to you. Okay, here I will just show you the technique. I will just imagine how chocolate is and try to replicate what I have in my head. Okay, so now what I need to do is to mix this diffuse shader and this glossy shader, so we add these reflections on top. So there are several things we can do. The typical way is just to add a mix shader here and just connect these two shaders right here. And you can see how if we just move the factor, it works differently. All right. This would be nice, but what happens when I add some reflections, it takes away from the diffuse color. And there is something that happens with chocolate and with any material that is not a metal, and is that the reflections are always white. All right. So, I mean, here in the shader, we have to set them white. Then they will pick the color of the light. All right. So if the light is magenta, they will pick the magenta and such things. But so what I need to do, instead of a mix shader, I'm going to create an add shader. So let's just add it here. I delete nodes by pressing X. All right. If you press Control X, you just delete them, but you keep a connection. So press Control C to get it back. And here we are seeing something slightly different, and is that we are seeing these reflections on top of the brown material. The problem right now is that this is too bright. Now, the add shader doesn't have any factor settings, so what we need to do is to control it with the brightness of this color. All right, the add shader, what it does is to add the brightest colors on top of the other one. So if we make this darker, you can see that we can control the amount of reflections, and this already looks a lot better. However, I want to take this a step farther. I'm going to press Shift A to add a node. I'm going to input, and I'm going to select layer weight. I will just put it around here, and by holding Control Shift and left click, I can see what this effect does. Okay, I want to use the phasing. I won't enter into the details of what this does, but basically it defines, right, it sets in black the parts of the model that are looking towards the camera, and in white the part of the objects that are kind of parallel to the camera. All right, so if we can change this, all right, we can have something like this. So you can see how the parts that are in grazing angles towards the camera are wider. All right, this is exactly what we want. And we are going to add this to the color here of the glossy. And so the parts that are looking towards the camera would be not reflective. We would see the diffuse color, and in the ones that are looking in grazing angles will be more reflective. So this will give us a nice touch to this shader. However, we maybe want to control this. Okay, instead of having this, by the way, if you keep clicking while holding Control and Shift, you switch between the nodes, the outputs of the node. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is to add a converter here, Colorramp, and add it just here in the middle. And this Colorramp will allow me to control how this looks like. All right, it will let me control the gradient. So if I bring these close together, we can see some interesting differences, right? We can make this brighter or darker. So basically now, if we wanted to control the amount of reflection, we would select each one of these markers here, and we would change the color. So if we want the black part to be more reflective, we would make it brighter. And if we want the white parts to be less reflective, we would just make this darker. So I connect this to the glossy. See what happens. Okay, so you can see how the dark areas are not reflective. So there we will see only the diffuse, which is similar to what we want. All right. Now I will select the black and just add just a little bit of reflections, just a little bit. And for this one, I will just select this and bring this down a little. All right. So now I have, as you can see, a darker gradient, right? And we can, of course, play here with the roughness to get different types of effects or more clearer reflections or whatever. You can see how the reflections are very clear. But if we increase the roughness here, you can, for these little sliders, you can just hold Shift while you drag, so you can control better how the reflections work. And I think this would make a pretty nice chocolate shader. So the next step would be to add this same shader to the rest of the hearts. So let's press slash on the keyboard. Okay, so we have all of the hearts. And I will select everything on the screen with A. Now I already have, right, here's the trick. We have two options here. We can select everything in the screen. Let's just enable only this first layer, so we only have the hearts. So I can select all of the hearts, All right, and then shift click on one of them to make it the active one. All right, or if I have one of them selected, when I press A to deselect it and A again to select everything, the one I had selected previously is already set as the active object. This is very important because the active object is the one in which we need to have the material, and the rest of them will just copy the material from this one. So in order to do this, I will just press Control L, and I'm going to go here and link the materials to the rest of the selection. And you can see how all of them have picked the material. Now, if I just change the material in one of them, it will show the changes in the rest of them. So, for example, I want to make this visible in the viewport that is chocolate, right? So what I do is come here to the settings under the material. And here I can change the viewport color to something a little brownish, okay? Something like that. So I know that they are kind of chocolate-like, right? Not very accurate color, but still, we get an idea. At least they are not white anymore. Okay, this is also very useful for making sure that every object in the scene has a material, all right? Because if they don't have, we would see them white or something. So this is interesting. Okay, now let's go back to the camera view and just switch this again to the render mode. Okay, and this is what we have. Sure, it's very dark, but it kind of looks like chocolate, right? Now we are going to shift click on the fifth layer to enable the light. So now we have the light from that lamp we set up before. And there is also one thing I want to do is that here we can see the background, which is gray, and we don't want that. We want that to be like a shadow or something. So I will just shift click and enable the floor. All right, so now the floor is not really visible, okay, even if it's just a box around the things. But down here, we will have a material and it will just have shadows, okay? Or if we don't have shadows in that specific parts, we can just apply a material to this floor and set it to some darker color, all right? But it's not really that needed anymore. But now the next step is to go here. I'm going to switch to a 3D view. And so in one of the 3D views, I will just work on I will see the effect of the scene. And in the other one, I will just be able to select and change everything, because during the render view, we don't see exactly what we are selecting and all this sort of thing. So I have this lamp. I need to just orient it again until I get something I like better than this. So let's just rotate it a little so it comes from that position, and just rotate it until I like how it works with these chocolates. Okay, I'm going to rotate it from here. And all right, maybe rotate it so it's kind of facing that heart, but now I think this is actually good. Okay, now the opposite part, the opposite side of the objects is very, very dark. So what I will do is just duplicate with Shift D and move on the x-axis. And this is really irrelevant, all right? The position of a sun lamp is irrelevant totally, because it's a directional lamp. It doesn't matter what it is in the scene. It only matters its orientation. But it's still handy to have them separated so we can easily select them, all right, and orient them and stuff. So I will just orient it from the opposite angle. So now I don't have those really hard shadows, okay? We'll just move it a little like this. So now the scene has a better lighting. And now I need to control the intensity of these lights and the colors. I want this to be kind of pinkish or something like that, because remember, this is kind of for love and Saint Valentines and all this stuff. So I will make it a little pinkish and just go here to the sun, and under the color, just drag it a little to the pink side. All right. And as this will be the main lamp, I will increase the strength to 2. Now the other one might be a warmer color, or maybe something bluish, or maybe something bluish will do. But this will be a little more darker. Okay, we can just start bringing it up little by little until we kind of get rid of those hard shadows. but not too much. Okay, good. Now this one, I think I will just bring it down to 1 or maybe 1.5. And what I want now is to bring the attention more on this heart here, okay, the one that is facing to the camera, and we want this to be the center of the scene, the center of attention. So there are different things I can do for that. One of them would be to enable the depth of field for the camera. So let's select the camera, and under the camera options, I can go down to the bottom, and I can increase the size. But of course, the size, you know, if we don't have a distance setup, is not really that useful. So I will just click here, and instead of selecting an object from the list, I could just, you know, just select this heart here, and go right here to the object options and name it as main heart or something like that. And now let's go back to the camera, and down here from the list, okay, camera options, and from the list I can select the main heart. I can start writing, and here we have the main heart. So now this will be the focus object. A different option would be to just click on the eyedropper and just selecting here and click. So now this object would be the center of attention. And so now I can increase the radius, and you can see that as I increase it, the depth of field effect increases. And right now, for example, this is focused, but the hearts that are closer to the camera are like blurred, and the ones that are on the back are also blurred. So that is one of the things I will do to focus the attention on this specific heart. But now the other thing I want to do is to place a light, so this part here is lighter, is brighter than the rest of the scene. So let's go up with pressing 7 on the numpad, Shift A, add a lamp, and this will be a spot lamp, so we can direct it very easily. Bring it up. Okay, and let's see where the main heart is. The main heart is this one here, so let's just bring it there. Okay, just put it on top of it. And let's start playing with the strength. So let's do something crazy like 1000. Let's bring it down a little. Let's see what effect it has. Okay, so we need a lot more effect on it. Let's add a 10,000. Now, the reason why we have to go crazy with this these settings for these lights is that the sun lamp is like linear. It doesn't, you know, the distance from the light source is not relevant. But in the spot or the point lamps, this the distance from the lamp is really relevant. All right, so this scene probably we have gone too big with the hearts, right? They should be a lot smaller. So we have to add a lot of light here so it reaches the part, all right? So just, you know, it's not strange that I add something like this, okay? 100,000. Now I can just increase the blend, and what this does is, as you can see, make a blur in the area of light. And now we can maybe, you know, just move it and rotate it a little, something like that. We can rotate it like this as well, and we can decrease the cone so as to just focus on that specific part. That's good. And now I can maybe decrease the intensity just a notch, so just 50,000 or something like that. That would be enough. And now I can just change the color. So the color would be something slightly pinkish, maybe a little bluish, or just around. So it's just a little like the rest of the scene lights, just more focus on that part. And I might just do this a little bigger. There we go. And less intensity, 50,000. Maybe 35,000. Okay, this would be good. All right, so I think that we are done with this. Okay, we, of course, you know, we could keep tweaking it until we get something exactly how we want it, but for the sake of this tutorial, I think it's enough. Now, you know how to do it, so you can tweak it yourself. The next thing I want to do is to make sure that we don't have noise in the scene. And how we do it? Well, easy enough. Let's analyze and see what are the parts more noisier in this scene, and it's probably around this area. Okay, this area here that is blurred. So I will focus on this area. I just want to render this part. So let's press Ctrl B and drag a border around here, something like that. So I can just focus on that specific part of the scene. Go to the render options and increase the samples. So let's go to something like 5,000. This is not, the number that we set up here now is not really relevant. What is relevant is that, well, let me just change this here. Right here at the top, it will show us the samples, the number of samples that have already been done. Okay, so we can take a look at this part of the render, and when it reaches acceptable noise-free render, we just take a look at the samples number that is running. Okay, and so now it's kind of almost pretty clean. All right, we are next to the 1000 samples, and so once it's clean, we just stop the render. Okay, we can in fact pause it, and we have the cursor positioned here, so we can pause it whenever we feel the render is noise-free or it's acceptable enough. Right, I don't want it completely noise-free because that noise gives it a touch of realism. So I will just press pause when I think it's okay. All right, this should be okay. So I press pause, and you can see that we are at 2,100 samples. So that's fair enough. We just go here to the render and set 2,100 samples. And now for the preview, I will just keep with 100. All right, now before we continue, just make sure that you you uncheck the pause button. Otherwise, instead of a render, you will get just a transparent scene. All right, and press Ctrl Alt B to just clear that specific area. And after this, we can just launch a render and see what's going on. So let's press, let's jump out from the render mode, and you can do that by going here and switch to the solid mode, or you can just press Shift C on the keyboard, and we just jump between the solid and the rendered mode. So now let's press F12, and the render will start. Right, we will see how it works. So I will be back to the recording once the render is done, and we will comment it. Okay, here I am. The render is nearly finished. It's taken a little bit more than 5 minutes, so it's not too much given that we have set a lot of samples, that we have a lot of objects in the scene, and we have depth of field, which usually increments a lot the render time. But, well, it's not too bad. The thing is, there are a couple of things I want to do. One of them is that I don't quite like these so hard shadows, and the other one is that this chocolate looks too perfect. And also here, in this bottom part, we can see the color of the floor. Okay, if we don't want that, it's too bright in these areas. So we are just going to darken it, and then we will just add some little imperfections to this chocolate. So, okay, it's just finished, around 6 minutes. Okay, so let's, we could save this by going here to image and save as image. And now from the dialog that I should be getting, okay, I can just save it as the same Valentine 2, for example, and we set RGB, I don't want the alpha channel, and PNG is okay. So just save as image, and I would have saved this one render. All right, press escape and just shift space to go back to the previous screen. Okay, we can jump into full screen by pressing shift space on in each viewport. Okay, so let's go to this one, and first I'm going to select this floor and add a material to it, and this material will be dark, something like that. So now this floor doesn't look white anymore. Okay, cool. Next thing I want to do is to make these shadows not so hard. So let's press Ctrl B so we can focus on that area. And let's pick this light, right, which is the one that is causing these shadows. And if we go here to the light options, we can change the size. So let's increase it. And by increasing it, we will make those shadows a little bit not that sharp. And it's probably not this light, the one that is causing that shadow. Let's just try with this one. Or, oh, sorry, it's this one, the one that is causing that hard shadow. This one, let's just put it at 0.3, and this other one pointed at 0.3. That should be enough, but this really hard shadow comes from this light, the spotlight that we added to add intensity to this area. So let's just increase it, and you will start seeing now how this shadow fades out a little. So it's not that hard. Okay, now I will go and focus on this heart. We'll select it, and let's jump here to the node editor. And there is only one thing that I will do, just very quickly, and is to add a little displacement here so we have some imperfections on the surface. So let's go and add a texture, noise texture. Sorry, it's taking a moment. Okay. And now if we press Control Shift click, we can see the effect, right? This would be the effect. And we can use this just connecting here to the displacement. You can see that now we have some little imperfections here. Now we can increase the scale, sorry, so it's a little smaller. And also we can see, if we just focus on this area here, that in the height is not that great. So what I will do is to come here to Input, add a texture coordinate, and we could do all this manually, okay? But what I will do instead is use another one of the features of the Node Wrangler tool, which is press Ctrl T, and it will automatically create these texture setup nodes, which allow us to control how the texture is projected on the surface. So I want to go to the scale in C, which is the height, and make it maybe smaller. So now the surface is not that stretched. That's good. Let's go here. Okay, this looks good. And we could try to maybe add a color ramp, converter color ramp. Just drop it here. Preview the color and just add a little bit of contrast. Just bring these two closer together and connect these to the displacement now. Now press Control, click, or just connect this to the surface, and now we can see the effect. Pretty cool. But I think this is too much. Maybe we need a bigger detail, so let's bring this down. Something like that. And what happens if we bring this together? You can see how we increase the effect this is having. Okay, so now I will pick this white one and I will bring it down, make it darker, so we can reduce and control the amount of displacement that we actually have. And this would be fine. So press Ctrl-Alt-B and just press F12 for rendering again. But before that, just switch here to the solid view. The reason I jumped to the solid view back is that if we keep this rendering, we may have the case that the viewport is rendering at the same time that the scene is rendering, so it's much slower, and we may have some sluggish movement in the viewport. So let's just press F12, or I will just save this just in case before we continue. So let's save, and here I will save this as Chocolate Tutorial Render. Enter, and let's press F12, and I'll be back. Okay, I will just go to this viewport, press Shift Space, and I'll be back when the render is done. Perfect. So I like this much better than before, and well, I think we can give this for finished. Maybe some more samples would be needed in these areas. There is a little noise, but still, you know, that's up to you. It depends also on how much depth of field you want on your scene, and it depends on the lighting too and the materials. But nonetheless, probably there is one other thing you want to do. I will just save this image. Let's go Saint Valentine 3. And just a little trick here. If you have a file with a number or with no number, if you have no number on the file, it will be added. You can press plus on the numpad. Sorry, wait a second. I shouldn't be there. Okay, just click on this Saint Valentine 2. And if I press plus, you can see how it adds to the number. And if I press minus on the numpad, it will be down. Now, what happens is that if we pick a name that is already picked, it will turn red. All right, this name field will turn red. Just to advise, to notice is that this name is already picked. So just press plus to pick a Saint Valentine 3. Let's select RGB. I don't need the alpha, and save as image. So let's go back. Let's go to the render options, and let's make sure that I'm rendering in the correct resolution. So I would like to render into HD, not full HD, and this would be 1280 by multiplied by 720. And I will just switch this to 100%. All right, so now the next time I render, the resolution will be right. Okay, we should have maybe set up this before earlier, but I just forgot. Okay, so just set it when you are going to, I mean, you need to make sure only that this is correct when you launch your last render. Now, there is a chance that you get some small bright points along the thing. Let me just try, just to show you. Okay, let's switch to rendered. There we go, and let's go here, for example. You can see these bright spots, okay? Now, typically, these bright spots are generated by glossy reflections, all right? Because the light is bouncing and it's reflecting in those points, and it's basically caustics, all right? So if you go here, if you don't know what caustics is, don't worry, it doesn't really matter. But if we go to light paths panel here in the render tab, you can see that we can disable reflective caustics, and that will get rid of most of those bright spots, okay? Refractive caustics is also for refractive objects. We don't have none of those in the scene, so it's okay. But reflective caustics is actually important. You can see how a lot of this is done. However, if you disable it, just keep in mind that if you have a glossy object only, it will not reflect light on other objects, and so your scene might be darker. Okay, but in this case, I think it's okay. Now, there is another thing. We still have some little dots around here, okay? You can correct this by going to the sampling panel. Let's find it. Where you are, here you are. Sampling, and here you have the clamp direct and clamp indirect. So by clamping with this, you can get rid of some of those points, most of them. You can see how now this is very quickly just cleaned. However, you have to use it with care, because we can just, you know, what this basically does is to limit the brightness of some points in the scene. And so if you turn it down or too much, you will get a darker scene. Okay, or if you, so just, you know, use it with care. But typically, you know, I don't know, in this case, for example, looks like it's working pretty well in this value. So this would help. Right, this is are just some tools to help you get rid of that noise. So let's press Ctrl-Alt-B. And now that we have the right resolution, the right settings and everything, there are also some more things we can do, of course. I don't want to cover everything, every single thing about Blender in this tutorial, and this is not in the purpose, okay? This is just for you to create something for your loved one or something like that. But if you really want to optimize this, because right now the render time is pretty high, so you can just basically go here and change the number of bounces and do something like 2, for example, and the maximum will be 2, and maybe just set them differently, whatever. Transmission, we don't need transmission. We don't have transparent objects or refractive objects. Diffuse is okay. So this will render much faster now, okay? The less rays or bounces the Blender has to analyze and render, the better the render time will be. Okay, the faster it will be. So just keep that in mind. I'm just giving you some quick tips here on to get the best render. And then, of course, you could just go ahead and jump into the compositor and, you know, adjust the colors of the scene, the brightness, add a vignette effect, and such things. Okay, so I'm not going to cover that in this tutorial. It wasn't in the scope of this tutorial, but you can definitely do it. So I hope you liked it. I hope you learned something from this tutorial series, and see you on the next tutorials. Happy blending!